Hi, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
We have so many friends, old and new here. People are piling in the best way. Just sit down on your comfy couch, wherever you are, or bed. It's Saturday. It's Saturday morning here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I know we've got women here in the UK, so maybe it's in the evening. And then our East Coasters, it's lunch. So I hope you have your favorite beverage so we can all just snuggle in together for this incredible and empowering day. So Noelle, thanks for letting, oh, Barcelona, Jolinda, shout out to you. Is that the farthest distance? I don't want my bad geography.
I'm in Rotterdam, the Netherlands.
And the Netherlands?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Oh my gosh. And Laura from Perry's also in the Netherlands as well. So really exciting. This is a global conversation. So we don't want to just continue on, me going on and on. This is all about empowerment. So happy Menopause Empowerment Day. It's our first time, it's inaugural. We knew when we talked about this in our meeting at Bossa Bars, oh, I'm Julie Gordon-White, CEO of Bossa Bars, Menopause Energy Bars, that we knew that we needed to link arms with all of our sisters, menopause brands, mostly female founders, in this conversation, influencers and advocates in this space. So we said, let's make a day. This is our inaugural. This is just the beginning, and we're honored. We've got incredible speakers, incredible partners, and I hope everybody remembered to post their graphic. If you didn't, go on to menopowerday.com, download the toolkit, and you can get your ME graphic to post on social. So without further ado, I'm super honored to introduce and bring up Stacy London, CEO of State of Menopause, all things menopause, shouting it out to the world on behalf of all of us. So Stacy, welcome to Menopause Empowerment Day.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy Empowerment Day, everybody. I'm so glad to see so many of you who I already know and love. Thanks for having me, Julie, and really just devising this day for all of us to kind of get together and talk shit about menopause, right? I mean, that's like what it's all about.
Exactly. Own it. Own it. I love
exactly.
It. Today, especially on the heels of yesterday. So let's just get right in there. What, in spite of all things, or maybe including all things, Stacy, from your experience, is empowering about menopause?
Oh, I mean, this is the thing that has been my entire journey during the menopause experience, right? I mean, I was like, oh, there are 3 stages, pain, agony, and torment. Like, it never occurred to me that it was a pre, peri, post, that there was education to be had. When I started my journey in 2018, even though there were companies that were starting up and a few that still existed, I really could not find any strong, reliable information. And my medical doctors really let me down. They, sort of dismissed my concerns as being, it's menopause, you'll get through it. And because I was one of those people who has a health profile where I couldn't take hormones, I saw nobody really picking up the slack anywhere else in terms of what it means to be a functional menopause company. And one of the things that I think is so important, empowerment to me really equals education. And I think all of us here are familiar enough with menopause as part of our careers or part of our jobs or part of our lives to understand that it is impossible really to just have a company that's just education or just community or just product. We are still a very fragmented vertical. And the thing for me is that we need to be sort of screaming from the rooftops for a consumer who, frankly, is not like all of us, who may not be ready to scream from the rooftops, who may still be completely confused about what is happening to them, completely ignorant about what kind of education is out there, in denial, ashamed. And we don't talk enough about how do we turn this conversation around, not just to normalize it, not just to destigmatize it, but I think both to contextualize it and optimize it. And those are the 2 things that I feel so strongly about, especially because yesterday was so painful. And what a blow for anybody who can get pregnant, for anyone who has female reproductive organs. And my experience, as I've learned so much more about menopause, is that you go down this rabbit hole And it is not a problem of vanity. This is not a cisgender, white woman, heteronormative, middle-class problem because somebody's embarrassed about, incontinence or night sweats or whatever it is. You go down this rabbit hole and you see that just like every marginalized and stigmatized issue, every marginalized group, you get further and further removed from the kind of help that we all need. So one, this is not just a vanity issue as far as I'm concerned. I really do see this very much as we need to put this in the physiological context of anyone with female reproductive organs and what hormonal health looks like over our lifespans. And we all know that our lifespans are getting so much longer because even in the last 10 years, we know taking 10,000 steps is good for us a day, right? We know that sitting is bad for us. We know that smoking is bad for us. We've learned so much about our health that we're actually empowered to live so much longer lives. But menopause is a natural transition, unlike the way legislation, kind of the FDA and the FTC regulate it as a disease, right? We need to change this conversation so that if you are talking about your period, if you are talking about pregnancy, if you are talking about infertility, then you should be talking about menopause too. And there should really be no difference in weight when it comes to any of these things. I recently asked members of our community at State of Menopause, do you feel that menopausal products, medical or otherwise, are essential? Like tampons, like birth control, like abortion.
Yeah.
Do you view menopause in that way? And almost all of them said no, because they simply don't, we have not been educated in a way to really explain the changes other than to say, you may have these symptoms, they may happen to you at this time. There's a lot about menopause that is dependent on bio-individuality. So how do we go education forward, create communities, certainly like Laura has. I'm very familiar with the Hey Perry community. And, to talk about this idea that, yes, there are hardships when it comes to any natural transition. I don't think anybody would say that being pregnant is a walk in the park. I don't think that menstrual cramps are a walk in the park. I think anytime we are talking about hormonal physiology, we are going to say that there are difficult things that happen. There are things that our body does that maybe we weren't prepared for and we don't understand. But education is empowerment. And the minute you have tools to know either what is happening to you or what choices are available to you, both from beauty all the way to medical, right? And I would consider my company to be in between those in terms of over-the-counter function. Mm-hmm. Once you know those options are available to you, we want you to have agency over whatever you decide to do. And that's why, to me, it's so important as a group, just us here even, that those of us who are, engaged in the menopause, the business of menopause, also understand how important education is to this consumer. I'm not sure that this consumer is ready. We have been saying, and this is one thing that I talk about a lot is, there was, for the last 2 years, the huge buzz in the investment community, menopause, $600 billion renewable market. Well, you know what? It's actually going to take a little bit longer, I think, than every VC in the world would hope.
Absolutely.
But that is because
I think that's an important part of this, Stacy, is that we're just on-ramping in this conversation. That's why all of us being here is so important. And the call to action today is that we go talk to 2 more people and just get that ripple effect, because you're right. We're having these conversations, but women, we are the anomaly. Every woman here is not the everyday woman in this conversation. So I'm right there with, we all have a lot of work to do. So keep going.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, if we were going to talk about actionable things, of course, that's what I feel like we have to do. But I'm going to quote a survey, and I can't remember where it's from, but all of the women who were surveyed in this one question, 20% of the 100% of the people who took the survey said that they would be willing to talk about menopause. Of those 20%, 100% only wanted to talk to friends. They felt uncomfortable talking to their significant others. They felt uncomfortable talking to doctors where they felt dismissed. And that is something that really we as a community should be leveraging. This idea that this doesn't have to be a first time kind of medical conversation where you feel embarrassed or you feel misunderstood, right? These are the kinds of conversations that you should be having with your friends, that you can be sharing information. We have to take the idea of this being past your expiration date of menopause as something completely different. And I think all of us here agree this is a natural transition with a new beginning, but it's also such a massive opportunity to safeguard the longer lifespans that we have already ensured for ourselves with the kinds of health health practices we know now.
Yeah.
So I always talk about this a little bit as Mother Nature's biological failsafe to make us sit back and take a pause. And literally take a pause, right? Mercury in retrograde is a perfect example, right? For any of you who know astrology, I say that this is the Mercury in retrograde stage of your life, because really everybody thinks Mercury in retrograde is bad, right? Communication goes haywire, nothing makes sense, everything breaks down. But the fact is, any astrologer will tell you the benefit of Mercury in retrograde is that you have to listen. You have to listen. You have to sit back and stop being proactive before you can just absorb and allow. And that is how I see menopause. This is a moment for us to give ourselves not just permission, but truly allow ourselves to experience what is happening, to understand what is happening, to celebrate what is happening, and to find the path that is going to make us the more empowered for going through it. Because I really do believe, regardless of whether you have symptoms for 20 years, 30 years, the rest of your life really isn't the point. Symptoms aren't the issue, right? We always say that symptoms aren't the condition. They're just the expression of the condition. And if we think about menopause as a stage of life that has symptoms that surround it, once we have solves for those, once we feel less I'm going to use the term here very loosely, crazy. Once we feel more grounded in what is happening to us, in understanding hormone deficiency and decrease and what our options are, then I don't see why we don't go out and rule the world. And frankly, at this point, I really think only women should be ruling the world and those who are gender nonconforming, because I've really had it up to here with men. But this is the kind of conversation that I'm so excited and thrilled to be having with all of you. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here, but this is our moment. And I still believe for the average everyday person who either hasn't heard of menopause, thinks that menopause is for super old ladies, or thinks that menopause is so far in their future that it doesn't apply to them, this is why we need to talk about this in context. If we're teaching young women about their period, guess what? They should know about menopause too. And I know that it's hard to say to a 12-year-old, well, someday your period is going to stop. But that same 12-year-old is going to ask questions about their period when it starts. And I think those are the things that we should be thinking about in terms of the way that we are looking at people with female physiology and their entire hormonal health lifespan. We can prepare for this in such a smarter way. And I truly believe that Gen X is the generation to do this. We aren't taking aging lying down, yes, but menopause and aging are they get conflated, but they're not the same thing. But we're also used to having answers. And this is the first time that I came up against something that I truly had no answers for and could not understand. So for me, this was an incredibly enlightening moment in my life, to feel like everything was sort of going wonky and trying to figure out how to manage that and how to deal with it and not feel like I was losing my grip. What was my refrain? I don't look like myself. I don't feel like myself. And I don't know what to do about it. And I think for the billion people who are going to be in menopause in 2025, we have a responsibility and we have the possibility to share this information in a way that, I felt so isolated and alone. If I had known hundreds of millions of other people were going through this at the same time, I would have felt a lot better. And I would have known to ask a lot more questions. And I would have had some way to orient myself to this stage of life. But, I will say, I think it is a 1-2 punch, right? aside from lack of education, we also have this kind of cultural inability to recognize, chronological menopause or chronological age as something to revere, right? We're all considered this kind of past your expiration date. So while you're having culture tell you that you're no longer relevant or valuable, your body is sort of creating such havoc with your hormones. I like to call it the crisis of confidence. And to be honest with you, that's my favorite kind of crisis, because we can fix that. We can fix that. Everybody here, we can fix that. We can do something about that and really create a completely different, not just conversation, but mindset and cultural mindset about what menopause looks like.
I love that. That's what this is all about, because I know we can choose a better thought. That's a way out. That's a way towards empowerment. We can choose a better belief about the experience that we're having. And even if we have to tell ourselves over and over until we actually believe it, that's going to help us navigate through all of this windy, uncomfortable stickiness that we all have to go through. And it's a gift anyway. I mean, shoot, I'm glad to make it to 57 and on, and all the things that come with it. So choose a better thought.
Sorry, Julie. I know. I just want to. I realize my time is up, but I just wanted to say that again, I really appreciate you and everyone here for hosting this and being a part of it. I love the idea that we are agents of change and that we are doing this together. And really, truly, not only am I grateful to be 53 and here with all of you, right? If we are telling, our young people, hey, you don't have to be embarrassed to go to the bathroom with a tampon, then we sure as shit should be telling them, you don't have to be embarrassed to go to the bathroom without one.
Boom. That's a drop the mic moment right there. Somebody needs to. Stacy, any one last parting thought to help women that might be here on this call in the workshop, that might, they're here because they're still curious, they're still on the fence, they're not quite as bullish and badassery as we are about this yet, and from an empowerment perspective, what's the one thing you might want to share as you are wrapping up today?
That you don't have to be as bullish and screaming from the rooftops as some of us here. That's why we're here. That's what we are meant to do. And, just seeing some of the people who are on here, Celeste from Care Beauty, I know is really creating skincare that is about middle age. I know Laura from Hey Perry is creating community around the perimenopausal community. I know Monica is here from Alloy when we are talking about pharmaceutical needs and hormonal choices. Camille, who started Menopause Made Modern for women of color. These are all people, Coach Jalinda, who is like literally, one of my gurus when it comes to understanding our moods, our fears. This is a complicated time of life. And to say that menopause is one size fits all, it's not even one size fits most. What I encourage you to do is listen to the people on this panel, seek us out. We are here to answer questions. And really, this is also something that you should be doing at your own pace. Tamsin is on here. You should follow her on TikTok. Her menopause videos are amazing. Part of this is just knowing you're not alone. And then part of it is being able to know who is offering you what. Do you need beauty? Do you need function? State of Menopause, we are a function company. We want to solve in the moment for acute symptomatic relief. That's very different from somebody, and we're non-hormonal. That's very different from a company like Alloy that is doing pharmaceuticals and hormones, right? And telehealth. That's very different from somebody who is looking for, the best neck fan on Amazon. But what you need to know is we are here. We're not going anywhere. We're here to educate you. We're here to help you. And seriously, even on my website, on stateofmenopause.com, there's an email, hey, Stacy at State of Menopause. I can't tell you the amount of people who reach out just to ask questions or just to vent. This is a new topic for a lot of people. It is a vertical in the world that doesn't exist yet. And we are making it so. And that ecosystem requires all the things that I mentioned before, everything from beauty to function to medical, also from education to community to product offering, and really also finding doctors that are going to be on your side and not fight you. And if you are not getting the kind of medical answers that are helping you, then you find another doctor. And there are lots of great places to look. So that's what I would end with.
Beautiful. Yeah, go to letstalkmenopause.org, which is our philanthropic partner, and there's all kinds of resources there. So Stacy, awesome as always. We love you. Thank you. Keep shouting out so we can all shout out right along with you. We've got this. Happy Menopause Empowerment Day.
Happy Menopause Empowerment Day, everybody.
Hello.
Happy Menopause Empowerment Day.
I know I don't want to say med, I keep calling it med, MED, but we don't want to say med because that sounds medical. Like we don't want to do that. So Denise Pines, hi. Denise is up.
Hello.
Our speaker, Denise is the CEO of Tea Botanics with her flagship hot flash tea. Denise is one of the first women, I have to say, that I met in this space. Actually, a man on LinkedIn.
Yes.
You guys are not posting about menopause on LinkedIn. It's a great place to post because not everybody's posting about LinkedIn about menopause there. And he said to me, hey, I know a woman who has a menopause company like you do. You two should meet. And we have been talking ever since. So.
Yep.
And Denise, you led the Los Angeles walk this morning. You look so fabulous.
I did. It was great. I had a man holding the banner up for us.
I love it.
Right, because we have to get men involved. We have to get our kids involved. We've got to get everybody involved. Just like Stacy was saying, this is not a gender issue, right? It's everybody's issue. I mean, when women suffer, men suffer, children suffer. So yeah, I'm always like trying to engage men, whenever I do media, I always say, hey, can I talk to the guy? I don't want to talk to the woman. I want to talk to the guy anchor when I talk.
Yeah, I love that. Denise and I would say every man knows a menopausal woman, some stage of menopause, whether it's your partner, your son, the guy who works for you. Yes, I said that. Somebody that you're interacting with. So men need to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah,
well.
I mean, yeah, they sort of feel lost. I mean, Julie and I earlier this year were at something called Expo West. It's the largest natural food conference in the entire world. And it's here in Anaheim, Southern California. And, I was exhibiting hot flash tea and Julie was sort of filling in when I needed to have bathroom breaks. And about 40% of the people that came to the booth were men. And it was so funny, sometimes they would see the box because, it's clear, it says hot flash tea on it. They would walk past and then they would come back because they had such a desire. They were thinking of their wives or their girlfriends or their moms and really wanted to just ask a question, ask if they could take a sample of the tea bag back. And so, and they just needed to actually like share it with someone. So I just felt let myself be like a sounding board. Yeah, like tell me what it's like to like have to get up and go into the other room, or when the fan is going and you can't sleep, or the window is open. I understand that, but let's understand her and what's going on and how you can actually be helpful. And they want to be helpful, right? So we got to bring them into the conversation.
That's a big part of empowerment, is bringing our partners into the conversation with us so they can support us or at least know what the heck is going on. So Denise, I would love it. Share what empowerment is, from your perspective and your experience having gone through the pause.
I always say aging is a privilege because not everyone gets it. My mother didn't get it. One of my best friends didn't get it. So I really love getting older. No, I don't like the aches and pains, but I do like the wisdom, from the experience. I like the self-discovery. I like caring less about what people's opinions are. I like, sort of the newness of an idea flourishing from a young person. Like I really get excited when I see a young person flourish, right? And when I was young, I didn't quite look at all my friends at the time going like, oh, look at us, we're flourishing, right? I love being a mentor. I love sharing, imparting, decades of learning in a short period of time so someone doesn't actually have to go through that. I love being with my friends and my family at this point in my life. I love maxing out my body. So, I do triathlons, a half marathon. I love like putting this body to use. I think we stop as we get older, putting our body to use. I started doing triathlons later in life. I think, maybe I was 48 when I did my first one. So, I just love, I started doing salsa dancing late. I started playing the violin late. All of these things I started doing late in life. And it's not like I had extra time. It was just that I realized I had starting to have less time ahead of me, right? And what else what other desires did I have? What other thoughts I had about myself that I wanted to experience? And I hope that's what women today, realize that, not to get mired in the way we feel about our bodies, that, that we don't have control at points in time, that we may feel sad when we're really not sad, right? Just because of what might be happening, hormonally to ourselves. But this is really a great time to really just explore ourselves and our talents that we have, and to see, what else can we do to serve one another.
Beautiful. I love that. Aging is a privilege. And thanks. I think Carlika shared that in the chat. And by the way, if you have questions, we're going to do them at the end, because otherwise we'll lose track of everything, but post your questions there. Denise, that's so beautiful. I love that, because it is to get older and wiser is such a gift. And that's really a empowering approach to going through this thing that our body goes through. Really beautiful. And so how have you, and what would you share with other women? You talked about moving your body, being physical. What has been, do you think, was the most important thing for you? And maybe a tipping point when you went from, like, I remember when in your story, when you started having hot flashes and brain fog, and you are like, what the heck? And then at some point it shifted for you from something really difficult to something really amazing. What was that? And how can you help women have that experience?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because, I'm going to really be honest here. I had no empathy. So I have like friends who are 10 years older than me. So they, of course, were going through their menopause journey, 10 years before I even thought of a menopause journey. And I had no empathy. I remember being at dinner sometimes with them, getting hot, and them wanting to open up a window if we were by a window, or telling someone to turn the fans on. And I was like, get out of here with that. No, you're hot. The rest of us are not hot, right? That was my whole thing. And then I have a hot flash. And I thought, oh my God, is this what it's like? This is like, I felt like I was having a human combustion moment, like where I was in a bad horror movie and I was about to explode everywhere. I had never felt hot like that. And I've been hot many of times. And instantly my mind changed to first calling those women up and apologizing to them for how I had, sort of treated them, and how I had perceived them. And then next it was, oh, no, I am not going to be suffering with hot flashes. Let me call my doctor. I know there's got to be some natural remedy that I can do. I sort of just moved forward with that. But then, as I started talking to more and more women and realized how we all suffer in silence. And then I even thought about myself, like, so a part of my background is I'm in medical regulation, meaning I am exposed to the best doctors in the entire US. I have access to any of those doctors that I want to sort of bring into my coffers. And yet, even in my own healthcare, even with my own doctor, not once did we ever talk about menopause. Not once did they ever ask me any questions about like how I might be feeling. And so I know this is where everyone else is, because I know if I had that experience and they knew who I was, I know other women are feeling that way. And so what I decided to do was I was going to bring the best menopause specialists together. I started doing this in 2019. My dear friend from AARP is on this call, and she supported that first effort in bringing from A to Z of the conversation about menopause, right? So from hot flashes to incontinence to sex to it all together, because I felt women need to hear the right information. We got to stop going to Dr. Google and really understand, because something Stacy said, all of our experiences are all uniquely different at this point in time. And I make sure that the specialists that I bring together, that they look like all of us. They are white, they are Black, they are Latino, they are Indian, they are Native American, they are Asian, they are all of us, because we all need to see that there are medical solutions by medical practitioners that represent all of us, right? That is not just coming from one particular source. So that's sort of the journey that I have been on. You know, it's funny, if you had asked me about 5 years ago, would I be talking about menopause? I would have said like, hell no, are you crazy? What the heck? So, you know, I'm in news and entertainment. So, you know, I do documentaries. That's the space, and television shows. And that's the space that I had been in. So I know how to leverage those spaces. I'm leveraging it in every single way that I can. I am trying to reveal the knowledge gap right now that doctors, that all women go to see have, by partnering with the Medical Board of California and doing a survey, so we can release this data and look at getting doctors who have 25% of their patient population over the age of 40 to mandate that they have a menopause education course, like mandate, which means mandating will mean legislation. So I have already talked to my senators and my assembly people here in this state to put forth a bill once I have the data to back what is happening. So I'm on a mission to change menopause for the women coming up. And menopause, you know, I always say it's not an old person's thing, right? Because the oldest millennial right now is 41 years old. They are perimenopause, right? They are freaking perimenopause, and they are a large group entering into this space. And they are going to have a lot of experiences like us if we do not change the doctor population of knowledge.
Beautiful. Wow. Get ready. Denise is coming, everybody. What is so rich about this conversation is that we all have a lens through which we experience this, and we want to share it. You know, Denise wants to go to Washington. I want to get everybody on Zoom and take a walk, do your thing. There's a place for everybody in this. So I love it. Yes, Denise. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All that you do and are doing. Keep an eye on this woman. I don't know how she does all the things she does. I ask her all the time, how do you do all that? She's like, I just have to. So fabulous. I hope you can stay around for the panel a little bit later. And so everybody, if you can stay, speakers, please stay. And I know some people have to hop off. Now, thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
So we had Gabriella up next, but she just disappeared. Noelle, do you see Gabriella? I don't see her. When I search, I saw her drop.
She sent a message that she had to log off and log back on. So I don't see her yet, but I'm watching for her to come back in.
Okay, so we can hop on over because Laura Crane is coming in from Amsterdam. Yes, I want to make sure I didn't say it, which I know that. So I know you're staying up late. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Not too late. Okay, Laura, can you show your t-shirt? Because there might be a giveaway happening a little bit later, and you might just get one of those great t-shirts. I love it. So awesome. Laura, welcome. Those of you who are in the Perry community, you may or may not know Laura. She's kind of in the background. You might know Rachel Hughes maybe a little bit more. I see you up there, Rachel. And so Laura is the mastermind, the mastress, is that a word? I made it up, mind behind the incredible Perry community. So if you're not in the Perry community, please hop in there and go check out all the great conversations happening. So Laura, welcome, welcome. So glad to have you. So glad.
Thank you. It's not that late. It's 6:30. It's okay. It's okay. I know Monica, she's very close to me. We're in the same time zone. It's doable. The sun is still shining here, so it's fine.
Okay, good. I think it feels more dramatic to say it's so late where you are. Okay. So, I'm empowered to say whatever I want now, right? I can say whatever I want. So, Laura, let's jump in. You are not in a stage of menopause yet, but yet you felt compelled to get into this conversation. So I want to talk about that because to me, that is so unique and so empowering. Just, from that perspective, a younger woman, you just had a baby, beautiful little baby, and you're like, hey, we need to have some education here. We need to have some community. So Laura, talk to us about that and how is that empowering from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me here, Julie. I'm so happy I'm here. I feel a little bit intimidated by all these great speakers before me. I'm German myself, so I have this weird accent. That's why. But I'm so happy I'm here, and I'm so happy to meet you. I'm very, very inspired. And as Julie was saying, so I realized that with my first child, actually, which is 3 years ago, that there is just so much community building and so many cool brands when it comes to fertility, when it comes to being pregnant, when it comes to having a baby, when it comes to being a new mom. And somehow for the next stage, which is coming for me very soon, I'm in my late 30s, there is not as much, or there's hardly anything. When it comes to community, when it comes to just bringing women or people who experience this phase together and giving them a platform to find a support group and to validate their feelings and to validate what they're going through. So I think that there's such a blurry line. I think Stacy was mentioning that menopause and perimenopause is not for old people. It comes, when you're when you're even me who had a baby, I'm experiencing already some symptoms where I say, okay, it's not that far anymore. So it's very blurry. And I feel that we're very badly equipped for the time which is coming after this. And that just led me to, especially when it comes to communities, and especially when it comes to bringing people together to support each other, there's such a void in that space. And that's where I saw my calling. And I'm a user of these support groups myself, right? When I have questions, when I was trying to get pregnant, I went into these groups. It just helps so much to see others are in the same space, others are experiencing the same, and it just eases so much your anxiety and your feeling of being isolated tremendously when you can talk to others and just have that perspective.
How many women are in the community now, Laura?
So we have different touch points. We started first with the Facebook group, but then we realized, you don't want to talk about very sensitive and very personal topics in the same space where your uncle is posting fishing pictures, or you just don't feel as safe there. So we decided to bring it to a community app, which is free, where we are at the moment at around 10,000 members, and it's just beautiful. Julie, you were saying I don't show my face, because I don't think it's necessary. I don't like it that much, but really the community itself, it just thrives so much through itself. So we have Rachel Hughes, who is just wonderful, who's leading all the conversations with all our experts. So she's really bringing that science into the community. But the rest is really done by the community and by the sisterhood, as we call it itself. So we have big sisters who welcome new ones into the community. It's very kind of, it's a very welcoming space. And it just, you just can tell by how much everyone is looking for support, but at the same time happy to support and happy to welcome into this new phase, into this transition in their lives. And we just conducted a bigger survey in the community, and we just see that community in an app, in whatever forum, just helps even with your, what you're experiencing. So many go through health anxiety and many go through isolation because every day there can be a new thing which comes up and which kind of confuses you and you don't know, how to place it. And just going somewhere and finding your tribe and, having the having the opportunity to ask questions. Is that normal? Does anybody else feel like that? That can already ease part of that journey tremendously. And that is just beautiful to see that, you know, without, and there are so many other great solutions to it, but just the first step of just voicing what you're going through and just asking for questions, that can already help you along the journey. So that's very nice to see.
Beautiful. And to me, it just says, look at, these are all these women that are reaching out to each other. I get all the notifications, so I see all the funny questions that they ask each other, and you know, they're supporting each other, they're linking arms, but they're also struggling together, and just, you know, they're just there together. And I think it's so beautiful that there is a community, and it just demonstrates that we need to have more community, more conversations for empowerment, support to empowerment. So thank you for doing all you do, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Julie.
Before I scoot you, I would love to know from your perspective as on-ramping towards perimenopause, what do you think is one of the, you know, most empowering ideas women can embrace to help them better in the journey?
Yeah, I think that what helps in different parts of life, but this one the most, is being honest, you know, telling how you feel and opening up, because I think the moment you open up, the moment you say, okay, this is what I'm going through, you might meet somebody who says, oh my God, me the same. So I think it's really about getting a bit what Stacy was saying, you don't have to be the biggest advocate, but just getting a little bit, you know, out there, saying, okay, this is what I'm experiencing, and just finding your tribe. It may not be your best friend, it may not be your sister, it may not be somebody you know, but it may be somebody, you know, who you have never met before, who can be the greatest partner in this journey. So it's really about, you know, finding your new tribe. Maybe it's an old tribe, but really kind of not trying to solve this by yourself, but solving this with others. And I know I'm not so good at that sometimes. I know it can be hard because you want to, you know, make it stay perfect, and maybe not always want to be open about how you feel. But as soon as you do that, and as soon as you know, are a bit more welcoming to, you know, the journeys of others, this can help just tremendously. So that would be my advice, and also what I see from our Peri tribe.
I love it. That's so awesome. And you're right, we don't always want to talk about it. That's why we created that conversation starter kit on the Menopause Day page to help, just in case you don't know what to say, to start a conversation. Anything you, and embracing our honesty and sharing our stories. It's kind of like those who have chosen to have a baby, you know, we have mommy groups because we're like, what the heck is going on?
Exactly.
Experience. So thank you for all you do, Laura. I hope you can hang around for a while.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks so much. Okay, Gabriella, are you here? Do you want to come on camera? I saw her. Now she disappeared.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. See, you've got that beautiful glow. Gabriella, you know my screen. I said you've got the Meno glow. It's beautiful. We love it. We love it. Well, I'm so honored to have Gabriella here for all of you today. Gabriella is well, I first learned about Gabriella and I was thinking she was a yoga expert, which she is, but she's really a pleasure expert, and especially around all things midlife, which, let's just be real, going through midlife, going through stage of menopause when everything is dry from head to toe, we need to figure out how to have a little more pleasure in the challenge. So if you've got little people around, this is a time to put on your headphones, maybe not. I don't know, Gabriella, I'm gonna let you say whatever you want to say. So Gabriella, welcome. And we would love to hear your thoughts on empowerment from your experience in menopause.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And it's so wonderful to see so many familiar faces here. So I believe that arriving to menopause is a gift. I mean, not only do we no longer have periods or worry about getting pregnant, which right now, today, is, you know, not a great idea to think about, right? If that was a possibility, given everything that's going on around pregnancy. But it really is a celebration. I feel, as you know, so many of the women today have already expressed, it's a celebration of the many years of lived experience that we have. It's a celebration of honoring the wise woman you are becoming. So I feel that we can use our menopause transition as a superpower. And I've invited you, Julie, as well as some of these other women that are on here today, Rachel, Jolinda, to come and speak on my online community platform, My Menopause Story, because I passionately believe that all of our stories matter and deserve to have a voice. And so I believe that our menopause journey is a superpower to launch new businesses, creative projects, social movements, and define our power and our success on our terms. So it's a time of letting go of the woman that we think we should be, right? We can thank that woman, right? Because we've been conditioned and to feel that we should be a certain type of woman. And that has served us, right? That has served us to be successful, that has served us to be mothers, to be partners, to create change in our environments, but we can let go of all the shoulds. Thank that part of ourselves that served us so well, and really let go of the labels, the expectations, and really tune into the woman we truly desire to be. Get out of her way and really let her lead the way. So, and I believe this is the wise woman that we are all becoming. So I believe when I was going through perimenopause about 13 years ago, I had never even heard of the word. It totally caught me off guard. It was not even spoken about in my family, nor with my female friends. I was in my early 40s, an entrepreneur, a busy mother of 3, happily married when I experienced that creeping anxiety, those panic attacks, that brain fog, loss of sexual desire. And at the time, there was not the awareness or education that's going on now. So I was totally in the dark. I was confused, feeling that my body had betrayed me in this way. And does this mean that I'm getting old? So I spent about 8 years in what I call this liminal space of where I was then, knowing it was going somewhere, but unsure of where I was going, right? So I got really curious to find out what this thing was that there was so much secrecy around. I went on a really deep dive journey of self-exploration and discovery, of really knowing everything I could learn about my body. I read, I took courses, I engaged in body-based practices such as yoga, somatic movement, breathwork, meditation. I sought the advice of coaches. Many of them, some of them are on here. There are some coaches online here. I'm a coach myself. I sought the advice of therapists, people who could really see me and guide me to really get to know myself deeply, to get to know not the woman, again, who I thought I should be, but the woman that I truly desired to be, so I could get out of the way and let her lead the way. And I know from my own personal experience that this process is not comfortable, right? It's in those places of discomfort where our greatest learning and empowerment lies. So learning to trust my body and allow myself to be led by the incredible intelligence that lies within this container of life, to get quiet enough to listen to my body's cues for rest, for nourishment, for movement, for connection. And what I discovered that when I got quiet enough, beneath all the stress, all the symptoms, all the mind chatter, there was the ability to feel goodness, to feel pleasure. And so I brought day-to-day mindful attention to all those things that feed that pleasure, right? Without guilt, without feeling it was superficial, without feeling that I wasn't deserving of pleasure. So I said no to commitments that I thought I should be doing. I took long walks in nature. I found alone time to enjoy a warm cup of tea, a nourishing meal. I bought myself flowers. I talked to friends that really understood me, or I just cuddled up with a loved one and just allowed myself to have a good cry. And yeah, this slowly started to allow to peel back the layers of tension, of stress, and doing and experience how much my pleasure matters. And I could look at myself in the mirror and appreciate all that my body was doing for me. And so now at 56 years young, 6 years postmenopausal, I feel at home in my skin. I can accept and love my body. I can recognize myself as a sensual being, as a sexual being, not the 20, 30-year-old or even the 40-year-old version, right? But the current 56-year-old version who owns her pleasure, her power, and her purpose, and can communicate my deepest desires from a place of truth and love. And I know this is possible for everyone. So I'm here to unmute the silence, the shame around menopause, around female sexuality, around our pleasure, and create a global conversation, a resonance of togetherness so that we don't feel alone and that we really truly own our power to become the wise, bold, creative, wild women that we're all meant to be.
Wow. Gabriella, I don't know about all of you here, but every time I hear Gabriella talk, I feel like I just had like a meditation or I just have this deep exhale, Gabriella. Your energy and presence is so beautiful. And hello, let's write down pleasure, power, and purpose. Pick your order. I'm going to keep pleasure at the top. Just saying. I'm going to own that, right? That's a great focus, especially as we go down the path, because it goes away. You know, we forget it, or it becomes a struggle, it becomes difficult. So Gabriella, that was so beautiful. So you've shared a lot just in that. Can you give us just one action to take to help women who still are in the gap of shifting from struggling to empowered?
Yeah, I just really advocate for getting really curious, right? Getting really curious to explore, to discover what you really want out of your life, what your really deepest desires are. Really empower yourself to know your body, what the messages we talk about, listening to your body. Our bodies are speaking to us all of the time. Really take time to get quiet and listen to your body's cues for nourishment, for rest, for relaxation, for pleasure, for movement. Seek the advice of a coach, of a therapist who can really see you, who can really mirror back to you, right? Your process, what you're going through, and really allow you to own this part of your life and really embrace the change and become this incredible, wise and wild woman that you really truly are. So I say get curious, know, trust, and really appreciate this time of life, and know that you can get through it for sure. And create a toolbox of practices. So that toolbox of practices are things that I often share with my clients. They're different for everyone, right? They can be yoga, it can be movement, it can be breath work, it can be a coaching. It can be coaching with
I said you look tired.
coach.
You think you're gonna be able to do it?
Whoops. Hurley, I
Sorry,
think you have to yourself. Go ahead.
So yeah, so that's my advice, to really use this time to get curious and get to know yourself, to know your body, to trust that you can get through it, and then on the other side, you really appreciate the journey and appreciate where you've landed. And it's different for everyone, right? It's going to be it's not going to look like what everyone else's experience is going to look at, but it really is about finding your unique, appreciating your unique experience and finding your voice in the process, and allowing that voice to be heard loudly and proudly. We all need to be more visible, especially in this time of life.
Oh, so gorgeous, so gorgeous. Curiosity is often the gateway to peace, happiness, and joy. It's expectation that always gets us in trouble. So I love that you have that as a tool for women as part of their transition from challenge to empowerment. So curiosity, ladies, write that down. It's free. It's available to you all the time. Gabriella, thank you so much. If you want more goodness and just get that good feeling all the time, follow Gabriella on Instagram. I'm just saying there's always something good there. Thank you. Thank you. Hang on.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I have to scoot, but I hope you can stay a little bit longer. We're going to hop over to Tamsin, who I know she has a busy day today. Something about Broadway, I think, involved. Tamsin, we are so grateful to have you here. You're such a courageous woman. You know, the entertainment industry is brutal, for lack of a better word. And you were like, hello, I am in the stages of menopause, loud and proud. So there you go.
Thank you. Oh my God. Well, I mean, being around all these women and hearing everybody talk, it makes me feel so good, because I've got to tell you, I was actually talking to somebody the other day about it. And I said, I don't think I've done local news for 30 years. And I said, I don't think I've ever said the word menopause on television as much as I have in the past year. And I don't know, the first time I did it, I actually broke out in a sweat. I'm like, this isn't even a hot flash. This is a sweat. But I feel like we have to get out there and say it, and the media has their role in it too. And so I'm just trying to do what I can to spread the word. But wow, such incredible speakers coming before me. So thank you for putting all this together. It's beautiful to see.
Oh, I'm just honored to be in everybody's presence as well. So Tamsin, you know, you've sort of now become this advocate influencer on Instagram, and now I hear you're rocking it on TikTok too. And so, you know, why did you decide to do that? And how did you find this empowering when it would have been really easy for you, especially considering you're on the news every night, to just act as if it's not really happening?
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's like it happened almost accidentally, but I couldn't keep quiet anymore. About 2.5 years ago, I had an incident during the evening news, and it was 10:30 at night. And I had just one of those hot flashes that take over everything. I couldn't see the words on the screen anymore on the prompter. I felt it from the inside. And then of course that gave me the anxiety. So my heart was racing out of control. And I ended up having to be taken off the set and, you know, lay on the floor of the bathroom and never finish out the newscast. And that was the first time anything like that had ever happened. And I had no idea what was going on. So I did the whole iteration of, is it something wrong with my brain? Is it my eyes? Is it what is going on? And so I went in search of answers after that. And I went, you know, trying to figure out what it was. And, you know, you start going down the Google rabbit hole, and that's it. Like it's a bad thing. I went to an endocrinologist. They wanted to put me on antidepressants. And then, you know, I finally went back I found a midlife practitioner, and you know, realized that I was at that point, but postmenopausal. So I had gone through menopause, not understanding or knowing any of it, and you know, realizing that all these symptoms and everything that was going on were part of this, because I had never stopped what seemed like my period. I have had problems all along with polyps and bleeding, so that wasn't an indicator for me. And after that happened, I really just felt like I needed, you know, the education was a huge part of it, but I also really needed to be honest about my journey. And literally, I remember one by one meeting different people and saying, oh, wow, this is my time in life that I have to be honest and be honest who I am. You know, I think a lot of us spend our lives trying to be the perfect worker, the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect everything. And I was like, I am not perfect. I'm on the floor of a bathroom with my cheek against the toilet, not knowing what's going on. So I realized who I was and who I was becoming, and have really started, you know, to embrace that. And it was not easy to go out on social initially for me, because I was very nervous about the fact that, like, oh my gosh, my boss is going to hear I'm in menopause. What are they going to think? You know, TV news for a long time was a really traditionally young industry, or an industry where, you know, you don't want to hear that your evening news anchor is having a hot flash, that's not hot. For lack of a better word. And so I was very worried about that. And luckily, and you know, I don't think everybody has this, which is where my fight is, you know, I want people to be able to feel free to talk about that and be able to have that in place at work and be able to feel like it's okay. And they can pull their jacket off in the middle of a board meeting and not be looked at like something's wrong with them. So that has become a really important mission for me. And I jumped on TikTok to talk about it because I don't know, I jumped on there to kind of practice what I wanted to talk about. And then one day I went down the list of symptoms of menopause. That's all I did. I listed the symptoms of menopause, and I had over 1 million views, like within a very short amount of time, of women going like, where else can I find this? What's the cure? You know, what can I do? How long does it last? And so I got my cues from the community, and then I just started answering those questions to the best of my ability. And then I've brought in a lot of the experts that are here, in fact, to help answer the rest of those questions. So it was an accidental, awakening over on TikTok, but it really have found an incredible community over there. And at the same time, my background is media, and so I've been working on a documentary about this with a partner who actually was at the Today Show for years and years and left as a result of going through this stage of midlife, where midlife meets menopause. So we're working on a documentary. We have incredible video diaries of so many women who've come out to be really honest about what they're going through as they're going through it, and where they need help. And and so many people, providers of different services that we're talking to, as well as of course the experts, and where we need to go from here, because there's a lot of different tent poles that that it encompasses. It's not just a one thing that we have to focus on. It feels like we've got to focus on everything all at once right now.
Wow, I love, it's so inspiring that you are taking this platform that you have to talk about something that most everyday women don't want to talk about. When I started Bossa Bars, menopause energy bars, my best girlfriends, do you have to use the word menopause?
Right.
And now you're on the news shouting it out. And, so kudos to you. Thank you for really elevating the conversation in a big way. And wow, that just goes to show you 1 million people viewed on TikTok, 1 million women and men, because I know you and I did a live, and there was a guy there, and he was the one asking all the questions.
I know, it's amazing what I've seen, and look, I've had some of the haters too. They're like, there's nothing more unattractive than hearing you talk about menopause. And then that just inspired me more to do it. And I thought, well, there's more to me than just what you see on the outside. So I am going to keep talking about it, because, that's the only way we get to this next place where we feel free. So I walk into the studio sometimes and say, I'm having a hot flash. And, and now the guys they're okay. They're not hiding anymore when they hear it. Now they're like, all right, we'll turn the air down so you can stop. But, I think it's really important that everybody has that safe place where they can go, whether it's at work or whether it's at home or whether it's with friends, to be able to talk about this. And that's why we're doing the documentary. So I'm excited about the fact that we've had so much support, and so many women share their stories, because that's not easy to be raw.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I know you've got a big Broadway event that you're heading out to. Minute, give us a one nugget. I know you've done some really fun reels also with great tips too. What's your favorite tip that you might want to share with anybody here to help them feel more empowered, Tamsin?
You know what? I was thinking about that as I was listening to other people answer that. And the truth of the matter is, it took time, but I also really had to unlock that bold that I used to have in myself. When I was young, I was jump without nets. I didn't care. I had no worries at all. And then I got very, buttoned up of like, I've got to be perfect here, and I've got to make sure this. And then finally I went, you know what? I got to unlock that bold girl that I used to have, and just be real with myself. And I was like, that honesty has been really, really important to me, and important in the relationships that I have outside of that. And I will say that I search for like-minded people. So the hashtags I follow on Instagram are midlife and menopause, because I feel like I could play the compare game all day long with 20 and 30-year-olds. But the truth of the matter is I need to hear from women that are going through what I'm going through. And, if I can communicate with them, or they can share one nugget a day with me, that makes all the difference in the world. And that's really empowered me to keep talking.
Wow. Oh, hashtag unlock the bold, right, Tamsin?
Yeah, unlock your bold.
I love that. I love writing down all those things. Noelle, I hope we're writing these down. I'm going to watch this whole video again.
Well, thank you for everything. I mean, this is just it's a beautiful place for everybody to be able to come and talk and feel safe.
Feel safe together. Thanks so much, Tamsin. Have fun today.
Thank you.
Bye. Whew. Does anyone need to take a break? No breaks. No, we're going forward. I do want to say one thing before we go. And I know, Celeste, you're up, so sit tight. I just want to thank all of the organizations that have joined together to help me share this. Many of you are here, and I just don't want to forget anybody. So I'm going to be, I'm going to go on my phone because even though I'm postmenopausal, things don't always work. So shout out and thank you to Tea Botanics, to Perry, Care Beauty, Hot Flashes and Cool Topics podcast, A Certain Age podcast, Dr. Larissa, Teneral Sellers, Tamsin Fadal, Menopause Made Modern, Better Not Younger, Lusa May, How Women Invest, Celebrate the Gray, INSO, Inside Out, How Women Lead, State of, Lizzie B TV, Kendra, Lisa Pepper Satkin, Barbara Sobel Nutrition, Hot Flash Inc., The Black Girl's Guide to Surviving Menopause, Jen Markles, Women's Body and Wisdom. Sorry, Gabriella, on your thing, right? Women's Beautiful Body and Wisdom, Dr. Ariana, Carrie Gran, The Memos, Let's Talk Menopause, Vital Femme, Lindsay Rents, Femme Pharma, Soupbox, Weil, and Alloy. I just want to make sure we got all of those in because it takes a village to create this. And I'm just so honored that everybody said, yes, we're on board and we want to share all this fun. So, okay, going forward, Celeste from Care Beauty. I used your serum this morning. Thank you. Underneath, so I start with my Care Beauty serum and then I add my Carrie Grand sunscreen on top, and I'm just, hopefully my skin shows. But let's talk about empowerment, Celeste, from your experience. Please.
Let's talk empowerment indeed. First of all, thank you to everybody for joining today. And Julie, you for having the energy. I mean, you and Denise are like the energy bunnies. It's just incredible. And I'm inspired by that alone. And, when you asked Lori and I of Care Beauty, Lori's on here somewhere, to join and talk today. Lori and I talked a lot about, what can we share? Because we have so much to share. We could probably dominate the whole 2 hours by ourselves and be obnoxious. So I wanted to just really come across with two things. One is that, and I think it's already come across in this first hour, this is an incredibly individual experience. It can start, your menopause can start as early as 35. You can go through a disease situation and have it even earlier than that. You can have it as late as your late 50s. There are women that continue to have hot flashes, and it's not uncommon, into their 70s and 80s. I hate to tell you that, but that's true. And I think that that's one of the reasons that we were so excited about thinking about what care could be. We took this word care because we think that in the modern world, taking care of yourself is the best gift you can give yourself and your friends and your family. And we threw the I in there for the individual because it is an individual journey and it's so unique. And that's part of actually what makes it interesting, right? Each of us, just amongst the 7-8 people so far, have a unique experience, both culturally, physically, emotionally. It's in our heads, it's in our bodies, and it's all different. For me, I have a crazy achy knee and hip, and it definitely stems from being postmenopausal. And maybe I don't have 900 hot flashes a day, but it's my own issue, and it's something I manage and I have to think about. And so that brings me to the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, which is a little bit of a different approach, in the sense that menopause is not something that just occurred in 2022, ladies. This has been going on for a very, very long time. And it's actually something, to be honest, that's amazing. And the reason I say that is that if you go back into human history, and you have to remember, we don't have writing beyond about 5,000 years ago, but we have all these archaeologists and amazing scientists. And sometimes I think that maybe when I was a kid and I wanted to be an archaeologist, maybe this is what I was destined for. But anyway, when you look back, and there's all these amazing sociologists, archaeologists, anthropologists thinking about this, they know now that one of the reasons that Homo sapiens, are successful, and the reason we're as amazing as we are, is because we evolved differently than other Homo species, Homo erectus, all those things that we learned about in school that nobody can remember the names of. So what do I mean by that? Well, there's this thing called the grandmother hypothesis. And guess what? we evolved to live longer and longer as women so that we could preserve and expand the species. We evolved menopause specifically so we would stop having babies every year or two. Because remember, you had to have a lot of babies because most of them didn't survive. Literally, like probably 90% of them didn't make it beyond, whatever it was. And so the reason menopause happened is so that we as women could then be the people that would allow our community to grow. We had the knowledge, we were preparing food, we were taking care of things, we were out there hunting, foraging, and so on and so forth. And it stems from the hunting all the way to the agricultural era, and it became longer. And because it allowed other women to have more babies in a short period of time, it allowed the species to grow. Then it allowed childhood to last longer, because guess what? Women over 40 who were grandmothers then, they were taking care of the kids. So it's very interesting. Without menopause, frankly, we would not even exist. Think about that. I think we should put that message out in the world. I really do. I'm like, how come it's, instead we have this stigma, we have this shame. I myself admit it. When somebody first said to me that I think you're going into menopause because I had this crazy bleeding happening, and in fact, Lori, my partner, was the one that helped me. She identified it as a fibroid and was willing to get on the phone and outright share her story and tell me her truth without my even asking. Because I grew up in a Chinese household. You don't ask these questions. It's just not what's done. I have no idea. And this is not, what do you do? Put on the internet, why am I bleeding so much? You don't really get very many answers, believe me. So all I can say is that I think menopause is to be celebrated. And I want to take it now a little bit more into the modern day, because it's really interesting, because now we're in the modern era. And we've had this time, we have long childhoods now. Our brain capacity has grown over the last, I don't know, X million years. I don't remember the actual data, but we are obviously the dominant species. And it's really interesting because here's the thing that nobody talks about. We all talk about symptoms, and I hate that word. Here at Care Beauty, we like to talk about menopausal manifestations. They're just manifestations, and they're not easy, and they're hard, and sometimes they suck. Okay, I know that. And I'm not going to tell you, oh my God, if you just think about it in a certain way and you just meditate in the morning, you're going to overcome it. It's not that simple. Everybody is going to have to figure out for herself, with her friends and her doctors and all these amazing platforms like Hey Perry and Lisa Health on the internet, and amazing women like Julie and Stacy. All of us are providing information. You need to listen up and share. But what I wanted to say is, okay, now we're in the modern era. And what's really interesting is the grandmothers, the women over 40, we actually have, from an evolutionary, a biological standpoint, believe it or not, we have what's called an energy surplus. Okay, if you think of, you can change, just reframe the thinking of what it is to be peri and postmenopausal all together. We have an energy surplus, and we have the benefit of a very long mortality. Mortality decline is real, despite everything going on in the world with COVID, whatever. Mortality decline is real. We live easily into, our average age now, I think, is 80. And in Japan, it's like 86 to 89, which means, and by the way, to live to 100 as a woman is not rare anymore. It's simply not rare. So we have an energy surplus. So what does that mean for us, for me, for you, for our friends? It's really an individual choice. I just like to say that you can get out there and look back and say, what are all the things that I was fascinated by when I was 10 and 20 that I never got to do? What is it now that interests me? I mean, it could be as little as I'd like to take up how to do interior design. I'd like to take up travel. I'd like to learn how to cook all my favorite foods. I'd like to read, all the great books that I never got to read. I'd like to see the 100 movies that I always thought I was, the French New Wave I thought I was going to see. I'd like to go to all the concerts that I never got to do, whatever it may be. Run the marathons like Denise. I just love that. And so I would just say, take the idea of that you're losing things away from your mind. Yes, you have to deal with it. Yes, it's not easy. And acknowledge that we actually collectively, millions of women, there are just between 40 and 60 alone, 47 million women. Well, there's about 75 million women post 40 in the United States, and we're only getting larger. And we have all this energy to give to the world. You want to get involved in activism? What happened yesterday? Just do it. You know, find 5 things you want to do. So I would just like to say on behalf of Care Beauty, take the time to feel good, to address your manifestations, whatever they may be, but also take this surplus energy that you've been given, that we've been given as a species, as women, and do something with it for yourself, yes, for others also, and for our community.
Wow. Celeste, you came ready to preach today. I mean, those menopause manifestations, I'm taking that with me every single day. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
For having us.
So glad. And shout out to Lori, the other half of Care Beauty, who is off doing something today, but I know she's here in the background with us. So thank you, Celeste. Hang out if you can. Hey, Catherine.
Hi.
Hi, so good to see you, Catherine.
So good to see you.
Kendra is here. Just always great to be in your presence, and your conversation box that you launched with Oma Sade is so fabulous. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Unfortunately, Omi couldn't be here with us today. She had a family issue that took her away. So Monica is stepping in to help us out. But Catherine, you're kind of been around in the menopause space quite a while. I know you know what's empowering. Tell us from your perspective, having those twins a little later in life, all kinds of things were happening. Let's talk empowerment. Go ahead.
Yeah. You know, I was thinking in advance about your question, and obviously reflecting on the last 24 hours that it is impossible not to. And I was thinking a lot about my own journey. So, you know, my journey, many of you have heard this before, but my journey into menopause advocacy as a career was really around getting misdiagnosed. So I was working at NBC Universal, and I had been offered like a new gig that was my dream job, like on the lot. It was like everything that I had ever planned for in my career. And I wasn't feeling well, like really not well. And I Googled symptoms, definitely thought that I was going to die, went to a doctor who validated, I mean, not that I was going to die, but basically in a very, very fast way told me that I had fibromyalgia. I should take this super powerful steroid and come back in 6 months. No blood work, no nothing. And I said to him, I don't know. I think there's something wrong with my clock. I can Google those symptoms too. And that is not how I diagnosed myself. And so pretty quickly afterwards, I saw another doctor who, OB, who said, honey, you're 48 years old. It's perimenopause. And I said, I'm too young. I'm not having hot flashes. I don't feel like I'm going crazy, like that. It can't possibly be menopause. And she said, which we all know, right? It's much more complicated than that. You know, all of these different things can be going on in your body. And, you know, I think of that moment often in my own empowerment journey of, thank God I had the wherewithal to challenge that doctor's diagnosis, because it's very easy to, you know, do what a doctor tells you. Right. And I think that as women in general, getting gaslit by our physicians is not, you know, impossible. But I think especially as we age, that there are kind of 2 ways to go in your health journey. One is accept kind of what's rolling at you and say, oh, it's age, or it's just getting older, or saying, you know what, I don't feel as good as I used to, and I want to find out how to feel better. And I think that that is one of the greatest challenges, as I think it's as women in general, but now that I'm older, just because my body feels like it's betraying me even when I'm taking care of it, like I find one way that I make my achiness go away, which was my primary symptom, and then something else comes up, right? I haven't, had terrible hot flashes, although I've started to have night sweats now. I'm 52, but like that felt like maybe I was going to get to bypass that portion. So you have to constantly be advocating for yourself, not only pushing up against doctors or communities that don't want to hear you, but you actually have to advocate for yourself with yourself. So that's one of the things that I feel like was my turning point when, it's like negative self-talk, but it's a little different. It's like, well, I'm just going to muscle through this. As women, I had my twins when I was 40. I was on an IVF journey. And I had a lot of discomfort during that whole process. And my doctor would just say, that's just part of being pregnant with twins. And I would say, okay, because I was so grateful, right? And so now when I go to my doctor about my back pain, so they take an x-ray and say, you're squished between your L4 and your L5, but it's fine. I'm like, I don't think that that's enough for me. Now I would just take, physically, I can handle the pain, I can manage through it, but I don't want to do that anymore. And I think that for me was the empowerment, was actually with myself, was the moment where I said, I just don't want to take this shit from my own self anymore. And we actually had a moment, we do these events with Gloria Steinem. And ironically, I was just with her the day before yesterday. And, in a devastating, knowing that everything was coming, and it felt very devastating. But in that, we did a conversation with a sort of multi-generational group of women around menopause. And one of the younger women, she was in her 30s, said, when do you get to that phase of life where you just don't give a fuck? And I said, I actually think not everybody finds that phase, and that part of you have the choice right now, which is to say, I kind of view it as the opposite, which is I really give a fuck about everything now, right? But I also feel like I don't care as much what people think of my own choices, and that I really want to focus on making women feel comfortable that the choices they want to make for themselves at any phase of life, but especially as we age, you don't have to fade into the background. We spend a lot of time fighting for our seats at the table, and we still should have those seats, and we should have those seats more than anything in our own lives and how we seek out care. So
I always say, own your own damn table.
That's right. That's right. That's
Don't ask anybody permission, and especially after 50. And by the way, I thought the F in 50 was for what you're talking about. Yeah, it's but that is so profound, Catherine. Advocating for yourself with yourself. That is the beginning of empowerment.
Yeah.
Because we really can't get it externally. We really can't get anything externally.
Yes.
And so when we realize the power is within, and it starts by saying, this is not working for me, thank you, or not even saying thank you, I need more information, pause, whatever that means for you, but advocating with yourself, huge. Yes. That's where
I'm going to add one other story to that, which I think is really important. And this came up recently with a friend of mine who's turning 50. So when I was in my 20s, of my whole life, I really loved my birthday. February 1st is my birthday. I really love my birthday. And I went through this long phase of never telling anyone that my birthday was coming, because I wanted them to celebrate my birthday. This is actually apparently quite a common phenomenon in the world, right? That you like stumble into your birthday and that everybody is supposed to celebrate you. And when they don't celebrate you the way that you want, inside you are upset. So as I was turning 30, I decided nobody could throw a birthday party for me the way that I would want. So I started throwing birthday parties for myself. The reason this was relevant is my friend who was turning 50 was giving me a little bit of the like, I don't think my husband is going to throw me a party. And I was like, F that. Throw yourself, I'll help you throw you a party. Let's throw you a party. Like do what you want. At this phase of life, have the party the way you want it to be, which I think just is like a metaphor for how we have to live our lives and fight for the solutions that we are all looking for, whether they are with our government or in our day-to-day lives of finding products and medication that help us feel amazing.
I love it. Throw your own party, buy your own damn table, throw your own damn party. Just saying.
That's right.
I love it. So Catherine, as we kind of pull it together, you with Kendra host these couch conversations, and it's a very intimate kind of environment. Is there anything that you're noticing that you might want to share that women are going to for empowerment, or something that's come up in those conversations that might be helpful for everybody on today?
Yeah, so the couch conversations are, we do these on a semi-regular basis with Gloria, and I co-host, and we've had a lot of very nice guests, including Gail King and Padma Lakshmi and Samantha Bee. If you saw her menopause story on her show, that was inspired from one of our couch conversations. And what's interesting about that is and it's like notable people and less notable people together in the room, is that nobody has a solution. I mean, that's kind of where we always get to. I mean, we're talking about breaking down stigmas, and certainly we're talking about our products and ways you can physically manage some of we call them concerns, not symptoms, right? Some of the concerns that come with this journey. But from a conversation standpoint, it often comes back to like just having to be bold. What I see also in the room is that even people who are wildly comfortable talking about a lot of things, when confronted with this topic, find it harder to talk about. And that especially for women who are on display as part of their careers, that aging is such a complicated conversation under any circumstance, and that menopause in its shrouded understanding is made even more complicated. We just released a video last week on our Instagram page where one of our younger team members basically like went around WeWork and interviewed men about menopause. And what struck me was that the words they used were like, I think that she gets more sleepy. I think that she's more tired. I think that, and some of them maybe knew like your period stopped, you couldn't get pregnant, but that it was like a deep, and not with animosity, just like having no knowledge. And while I hope that, women have some knowledge, I do think that a lot of this comes down to education and information. So we spend actually a lot of time in those sessions kind of educating one another on what menopause really is. We send out primer material because some women don't get that information from their physicians. And that it really ends up being a conversation talking a lot about feeling comfortable in who you are and how you can find ways to do that. Even aside from when I do conversations with groups of women, interestingly on Zoom, this happens less, but often if I go to an event, there will be a group of women who are very vocal and a group of women who are like looking at the floor. And then the women looking at the floor, you know, come up at the end and want to talk one-on-one. And so I think it's also like so many of us are advocates on this call, right? Being able to have that brave first step in the conversation, but also, you know, letting every woman find her own path to this comfort, because it's, you know, it's very individual. That's one of the things about this, right? There's no one solution because there's no one physical experience that happens and emotional experience that happens here.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for all you're doing and leading the way in these conversations and sharing all these different perspectives, because again, like you said, it is so individual and we have to continue to share, inspire, teach, to help everybody find what resonates with them. So beautiful.
Well, we love what you are doing, and so many of our friends on this call. I mean, it is really, you know, things like this are, I think, changing the path for the better. And I'm pretty sure that everyone on this call feels additional grave responsibility to be, you know, forging a path for women's health for our daughters and granddaughters and nieces and
neighbors.
Everyone with a uterus needs our help right now. Yes.
Every person that identifies with menopause, absolutely. Catherine, thanks so much for joining. If you can stay. If you can't, I get it, but we'd love, I know there's questions. I'm looking in the chat. I can't see everything. Noelle, maybe you can write some questions down to help me out. There are 61 messages in the chat already. So
wow.
Bye. Beautiful, everybody. I love the engagement. And so thank you, Catherine. Yes, someone said, will we have access to the resources? And I think Noelle posted in the chat, you can find things on menopause, or you can go to menopowerday.com and also follow everybody, follow all the speakers, because there's so much information everyone is sharing. And if you can see some of the people in the chat, there's some major pros in here in the chat and in this room with us as well. So let's pull it to Monica. You've been here from the beginning. And we were chatting, and Omi could not join us today, although I will say that I had a private conversation with her yesterday that we recorded that is so powerful, so powerful. So we'll be sharing that out separately because we do not want to miss her voice today. But today, yep, Jerry's here, and Jerry said we need to band together to make a difference, especially now. That is for sure, Jerry. And so, Monica from Alloy, we are so glad you're here. Thank you for saying yes. Yes, I'm in. We would love to hear from your experience, from Alloy's perspective, whatever you like to share about how can we make this experience more empowering.
Yeah, well, so first of all, thank you so much for having me. And it's a lot of pressure being the last one, but it's interesting. I really enjoyed and wanted to make a point to listen to everybody else first, to hear, you know, what they had to say. So I was glad to you know, to hear the other perspectives. And like, you know, there's so much to respond to, but for example, you know, Catherine was just saying that that nobody has a solution. And I think that actually, you know, I've been in menopause now for 8 years. I had my ovaries removed prophylactically when I was 40. I'm 48 now. I got diagnosed with the BRCA gene, the breast cancer gene, when I was 39. It didn't come as a surprise to me. My mom had breast cancer twice very young at 36 and 45, and so did her mother, my grandmother. So I always was, you know, I've been tracked and sort of screened since I was very young, 25, having mammograms and sonograms and sort of living with this specter of eventual breast cancer in my, you know, in my future. And at a certain point, my doctors all started saying, you know, you should have a prophylactic surgery, whether it was a mastectomy or ovarectomy. I was really being pushed in that direction, but I have 2 sons. They're 17 and 15 now. I had my first one when I was still 30, just about to be 31.
and then my younger son 2 years later. And, you know, when I was sort of between 30 and 40, I always had this idea that I would have 3 kids. So I had to, I think I'm a much better mom of 2 than 3. So thankfully I didn't have the 3rd, but I really wasn't ready to do any sort of prophylactic surgery at that point. And I actually wasn't that afraid of the breast cancer. It was something I felt like I had it, you know, I was really being screened, and my mother is still alive to this day. My grandmother also did not die from it. So it wasn't something that was really, you know, that terrifying to me. But the idea of ovarian cancer was obviously less appealing, and I didn't feel like I had my family had the bandwidth to go through that. So after probably about 6 or 8 months of sort of deciding whether or not to have this surgery, I decided to go for it when I was 40. It really was precipitated actually by Angelina Jolie's op-ed when she wrote about her journey and her decision-making. And it wasn't specifically that, but after she really broke that out into the public sphere, and I think she was really one of the first people to do so, there was a lot more stories that came out. And there was one story that I read that gave the stat that if you are BRCA positive and you have your ovaries out by the time you're 40, that you further reduce your risk of breast cancer by 50%. And that felt like something that I should do. So, you know, that was compelling enough. And I made the decision that I didn't want to have a 3rd child. Part of the reason why the decision took so long is that, you know, like my husband kind of wanted a 3rd child, and we had to work that through. And even though I had been on an IUD for 5 years, like, you know, it was super traumatic. I have a complicated relationship actually with my mother, and her, you know, all of the guidance was actually that she should get tested, but she didn't want to get tested. So I had to do it. And that put a lot of pressure on me to, you know, but also it ended up being the best thing, because I really could sort of make my own decision without her investment in it. And so anyway, I went through the surgery and sort of thinking like that was the biggest decision that I would be making. And then I had the surgery and went into surgical menopause. So, you know, what I learned is that the definition of menopause is that your body stops making estrogen. That's the reason why all of the, you know, it's very biological that your cells depend on estrogen for optimal functioning. There's almost no tissue in your body that doesn't, in a woman's body, that doesn't have estradiol receptors or estrogen receptors. And so, you know, it's just a fact, like you stop making estrogen, and everybody's journey is different because, you know, you have a different cocktail of symptoms or concerns. You have obviously different things in your life that are impacting your mood and kind of how you're able to get through the day. As I said, I have sort of a complicated family situation. My marriage was kind of on the rocks as a result of all of this. I was angry, you know, also at my husband, at, you know, sort of having to deal with his emotions and feelings about my decision and sort of how all that manifested. I had 2 small children. I actually didn't really, I went to business school and graduated when I was like 29. I think I was 29, and worked for a couple of years. Also, when I always expected to go back to work after I had a baby, but I was sort of pushed out because my older son, who's 17, we had a caregiver who just didn't work out, and we had to let go of her. And I was working full time and traveling a lot, and I didn't have anyone to take care of my son, and this was pre-Zoom. So I wasn't allowed to work from home, and I wasn't allowed to work part-time. So I had a 9-month-old baby. I basically had to quit. And between 30 and 40, I worked in and out, full-time, part-time, not at all. And sort of the prior 5 years before having the surgery, I wasn't working. I was just at home with my kids. So now I land in menopause. I have sort of agreed with my husband, like, okay, I'm not going to have any more kids, so I'll go back to work. What am I going to do? I'm 40 years old. I haven't worked in 5 years. I was angry. I didn't sleep for 6 months through the night. I gained 20 pounds. I was a fucking mess, basically. Like, I mean, I was listening to Gabriella thinking how wonderful that you were able to, experience this and really focus on yourself, but I needed to get a good night's sleep. And I was upset, I was tired, I was moody, I was fat, I just didn't know what end was up. And my surgeon had said to me, you should take hormones. You need it. You're young, you should take it. But he did not give me a prescription. And so there was a difference of opinion between him and my OB, and then other, I just got like lost in the maelstrom of doctors who weren't really giving me clear information. And so ultimately it took me, 6 months later, I started taking hormones thanks to a neighbor of mine who looked at me one day when she saw me in the hallway and said, like, something's wrong with you. You need help. And she was 15 years older, and she sort of put her arm around me and got me an appointment at her menopause specialist, who prescribed me compounded hormones. And I mailed away for them. They arrived in the mail. I got them, I think it was like $350. I put on this cream and I slept through the night. And I was like, oh my fucking God, like, this is magic. I don't know, wow. And from there, I was able to, physically get myself back together. And I think that that's one of the things about menopause and sort of this time in our lives that does become a little bit blurry, is that there are physical symptoms, there are emotional symptoms, there are environmental symptoms and things that you can't control that are, really impactful. And for me, honestly, it's like, I believe in all the things. I believe in the teas, I believe in the creams. I am willing to do and try anything. But I think that women, unfortunately, have been so poisoned against the idea that about hormones and estrogen in particular, because of a really damaging study in 2002 called the Women's Health Initiative, that gave everybody this idea that estrogen will give you breast cancer. And first of all, if anybody is going to get breast cancer from estrogen, it's me, because I just did a risk analysis. I have an 80% lifetime risk of getting breast cancer. I'm actually still not afraid of it. I'm certainly not afraid because of the estrogen, because it has been absolutely proven that it will not give you breast cancer. That's definitive. But also, there are so many other things that are important, which is why we chose the name Alloy actually for our company, because an alloy is a combination of elements for strength and protection against corrosion. And that is basically, that's the solution. It's a combination of things. You have to manage your stress. You have to try to get more sleep. You have to exercise and be outside in nature. You have to engage with women and other people and friends and family. Like, it is living with intention and deliberate nature is, I think, the most empowering thing about being this age. You have so much perspective that you can look back and really take stock in all the things that you've learned and done at this age, but you also have almost as long from here on out to live as you've lived already. And that is a really unbelievable position to be in, that if you can sort of work to get, what you need to feel your best at this stage. And I do think that, my perspective is that not enough women know about HRT or MHT as it's typically called, and that it's important. You don't have to take it. My perspective is like, it's your choice. You do what you want to do with your body, but you should understand the science and be informed so that you can make an educated decision that will help you. And that is, I think, what we need to sort of understand at this point. That's, for me, the solution, and has been. And kimchi. Kimchi and sauerkraut is also really important, probiotics.
I'm still struggling with the sauerkraut, but that is so, thank you so much for sharing your personal, intimate story. I know that at least one woman right now, and many women who will watch this recording, will feel empowered by hearing your story. They will feel less afraid. They will be open to trying all the things, including HRT, because that might be the thing for them. So I really, really, really appreciate you being so honest. This is what I love about all things menopause, because there's just so much honesty and sharing it, so empowering. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We have 15 minutes for some questions and to talk about what we're going to do next, all kinds of things. So thank you, everyone. I don't know, I feel like we need to go to gallery view. Noelle, while you are pulling this together, because I would love to see everybody who's here. I don't know how to close this little dooley bopper here. Close. Okay. Hi, everyone. I know, let's see, we have multiple screens. So good to see everybody. If you have this is so risky for me to do this, but I trust you. If you have a quiet background, come off mute. If you get noisy, go back on mute. I'd love it. So Noelle, is there a question that you saw in the chat that you could share out loud that we can answer?
The only question that I saw was, in fact, if we would be sharing all of the resources. So yes, we are recording this and we will be sharing it, but also menopauseempowermentday.com has a link to all of our partners from today. And then I did want to mention that with the conversation right now around estrogen and its benefits, Dr. Larissa just shared a link to a book called Estrogen Matters: Why Taking Hormones in Menopause Can Improve Women's Well-Being and Lengthen Their Lives without the risk of without raising the risk of breast cancer. And there's a number of comments in here about seconding that recommendation. So that's another resource as well.
Excellent.
Can I jump in for 1 second? I just like to say that there are still, and it's not done with bad intentions. There are many, many doctors out there who, to Monica's point, will just point blank say, you're not eligible for HRT. And they haven't looked at the most recent research, which is actually quite profound and very broad reaching. And it's not as simple as, okay, HRT causes breast cancer or can elevate your risk of a heart attack. It's actually very complex. And for the vast majority of women, it can have profound benefits. And the nuance behind modern medicine, it's not like the HRT that existed in the 70s and the 80s. I think it's so important that I just say that out there. It's not my specialty, but I think about it a lot at CARE because you know, skin is one of the estradiol receptors. And there are women out there that actually take HRT just to improve their skin so they can feel better and have more confidence. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Thanks for sharing that, Celeste. Awesome. I know Lindsay had a question. Lindsay, you want to come off mute and share your question?
Hi, everyone. This has been so incredible. I'm a little blown away by everyone and like how great everyone's making all of us feel. So thank you for that on a Saturday. My question is, I started taking hormone replacement therapy about 3 months ago, and it really has done like sleeping and weight loss and just overall mood and like my motivation. It was like a cloud just lifted within like 3 weeks. The only side effects that I'm having from it is that every once in a while I get this like nausea and I wake up with it. And as soon as I wake up with it, it's usually like 1 or 2 days out of 7. And if I wake up with it, I will have, it's like, oh, it's almost like I felt like morning sickness. And like it will last for hours until probably like lunch or something, like around noon. Is that normal?
I guess you're asking me.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm taking advantage of this moment.
I have not experienced that. I mean, I can't tell you that it's not possible. I think, you know, everybody, first of all, are you taking it orally or by patch or?
Orally.
Okay. So it's possible that if you try to patch, you might not have that problem. So here I've taken, in my 8 years, I've taken compounded creams, I've had pellets injected, I've had patches, oral, like Divigel. I literally have tried everything. And I think, and now I personally ultimately like taking oral pill, generic estradiol pills, and micronized progesterone. And by the way, it's also very important. The studies have now shown that the only slight increase that was seen in breast cancer as a result in the WHI was a result of synthetic progestin. That's what they used. That's not what gets prescribed generally today. So today, most people take bioidentical estradiol and micronized progesterone, and there are no increased risks of breast cancer or anything with that, essentially. But you might want to just play around, and instead of taking an oral, try a patch and see if that, you know, makes the difference. And if it does, then you'll know that that's kind of what it's attributed to. And but there is a lot of, not necessarily, but there can be some adjustments. Maybe you might need a lower dose. I don't know what your dose is, but like I take 1 milligram. A lot, you know, we at Alloy, we generally start at 0.5 milligram because that gives women a runway to sort of go up if it's not helping their symptoms. There's not a increase in risk of, you know, one dose or the other. But for example, too much information, but I talk about this all the time. Like by accident, I started taking 0.5 milligram and I ended up with vaginal dryness. Thank God for vaginal estradiol cream. It solved the problems. I'm back to normal. But like, that was another problem in my marriage. All of a sudden I was like, stay away, you know, and I didn't realize, even though I'm in the zone, you know, and I'm in the business, like it was a new symptom for me. And I didn't know that that's what it was. And that is, you know, I think back to sort of really being at a point where you know your body and you can start to pay attention to things. It's important, you know, so, and take yourself seriously, and don't be afraid to say, something's not right. I need to, you know, figure it out. And it could be a dose thing. It could be a form factor. It could be, but I do think, you know, I'm glad to hear that you're feeling a lot of relief, and that cloudiness and the sense of doom and anxiety. Like there are just so many symptoms that,
and the brain fog,
yeah,
and my motivation, like even like at the gym, like just if everything, it's, so I personally just feel like the more women can start to entertain the idea that this is not something that's going to be at risk for their health long term,
I mean, in fact, it's so important for your health long term because it is FDA approved to prevent osteoporosis, which, you know, is something that I don't want to get. I'm pretty big boned, so I don't know that I'm particularly at risk, but like I'd rather avoid it, you know, and do what I can to avoid it, which is 1, taking estrogen, and 2, you know, weight bearing exercise and things like that. But otherwise, by the time you get osteoporosis, you have it, then you can't get rid of it, you know. And so I'd rather prevent it very safely and effectively and cheaply than have to sort of suffer the problems of quality of life issues later on.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the answering.
Thank you. And check the chat. By the way, Dr. Larissa, I'm just going to shout you out here. She's on our team. She actually is not well, feeling not well, and she's here and she's chatting and sharing advice. So Larissa, we love you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She's amazing if you want to reach out to her for a conversation as well. And Jolinda, I just feel like I want to hear your voice. Your name has come up today and you just posted something in the chat. What did you say in the chat, Jolinda?
I don't have a quiet background because my son just came home. But
go ahead.
I was just saying that a lot of women don't realize that if they're not a good candidate for systemic HRT, that if their primary symptoms are genital urinary, you know, the vaginal dryness, or the stress incontinence, for example.
We're having a little bit of breakup in your signal.
The local HRT vaginal gels and suppositories and also
Jolinda.
What she's saying is that vaginal
Can you hear me?
estradiol, vaginal estradiol is actually anyone can take it, even if you've had breast cancer, and it's super effective for dryness.
Let me jump off and jump on my phone.
Okay, we just have a couple more minutes. No problem. So we're almost to the end here, ladies. Oh, I could just stay on all day, but I know it's Saturday and hopefully it's beautiful where you are. So we are going to share this recording, just the generosity of giving and inspiration for all the speakers today. We're so grateful. This day, Menopause Empowerment is about all of you, about all of us. This is just the beginning. And so I would, as I said in the beginning, my call to action to all of you today is to reach out to at least one other woman, one other person who considers themselves someone who will go through the pause, maybe a male identifying person who knows somebody going through the pause, which is everyone. That includes my sons, my daughter, my sons, my husband. So we can lift just one other person up. It's just, this is our time. This is our midlife launch pad to the very next best season that we couldn't even imagine. So as I think Celeste was saying, if you have a dream for something, I always say that's your internal GPS. If you have a dream, it's telling you where to go. You wouldn't have that dream if it weren't for you. So this is the time we can trust our intuition, lean into all of those whispers. As Gabriella said, get quiet and go out in nature. Do the things that we can actually hear the voice inside of us, regardless of what of the other things that are happening, so we can move towards our very, very best life. So it's really important that we lift each other up. We come together. Jolinda, I see you're on here. We're going to have to scoot. So please post your comment. We'll have you on. I'd love to have you on the Meno Lounge so you can share more. And check out all of the organizations on menopowerday.com who love you, believe in you. We're investing money because we put our money in our pocketbooks where our mouths are, because we care that much. We really, really do. Those of you who are in the San Francisco area, Lizzie B, I saw you here. There you are. And Noelle and I were leading to walk towards the Golden Gate Bridge. So even if you're in Europe, just get on a plane. You could probably be here a little bit later tonight. East Coasters, same thing. We're empty nesters. We have an extra guest room. Come on in. We'd love to have you walking towards the iconic, gorgeous bridge with us tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. Denise just posted, Femme Aging is having a pitch competition. Check out the chat. There's so many great resources here. Don't forget the ME graphic. Post it on your socials so we can out loud share with the world that we know we're in our best season of life. You can grab it at the menopowerday.com website if you don't have it already. Pick your color out of the social media toolkit, share that around. Oh, and because we want to keep the goodness going, we decided to do a giveaway. So watch out, we'll be sharing more information about that. Everybody's contributed the prize, the giveaway gift, the treasure chest is worth over $500. And I'm not talking like fluffy things, like real stuff. So super excited. We love you all. We believe in you. Happy Menopause Empowerment Day, everybody. Go out there and make it a great, great day. Thank you. Love you.
Thank you.